to the Mixorcist. Welcome to the Mixorcist.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode. EB, what's going on?
Oh, hanging out, man, hanging out. Watched a cool TV series a little while ago. It's called To the Lake. And it's basically your end of the world, pandemic, plague fitting. Meets zombie apocalypse, meets it's Russian. It's a Russian film.
Always good.
Yeah, and it's on Netflix. And it defaults to the English ADR. So it's an easier watch if you do it that way. But I will say that the sound isn't quite as good with these ADRs. So if you're really feeling hardcore, you might want to switch that to the original Russian. They'll give you subtitles. You know, pull up with a bottle of Stolichnaya or something and binge it all night. Get
the real deal.
That's right.
Yeah. Cool. I went back in time and watched Insidious. I've never seen it before.
Oh, sick.
So I liked it. I had the first one especially. I love movies where you're just walking through, no music, no tension, no nothing, and there's like something sitting in a chair that's not supposed to be there, and they don't draw any attention to it. It's just there to freak you out. They do that a couple times in that movie. Mm-hmm. The most meaningful one is one where she's just walking through the house, and like later there's an incident, but like 3 minutes before the incident, there's a little dude with a hat just standing next to her coat rack. And no big deal. Like he's not really looking at her or anything. He's kind of facing the wall. And if you're not really watching, you'll miss it. But if you go backwards, you realize that was a sick and really twisted thing to do.
I'm going to have to go back and check that out. It's been ages since...
Put that one in your kit bag, man. If you ever decide to make a horror movie, that's a real good gimmick. Like just panning through something and there's somebody standing there looking in the window or sitting in the living room chair. It's not supposed to be there. That's what horror movies are about, man.
Yeah, man.
All right, so what else is new?
What is new is that we have a new product from Acustica Audio, and it seems like we were just here 10 minutes ago with one. Mm-hmm. They've got a very aggressive release schedule, I have to say.
Totally. And, just in time for Christmas.
That's it. And they're up in their game, though, I think, with every new release. They just keep seeming to sound better.
Yeah.
And, with a few minor observations about this particular one, which is Opal, I think we've got a winner here, too, as well.
I think we do. Do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I'll give it a whirl.
So just share up so we can see what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. And while I'm sharing up, what were your impressions of the?
Okay, so I know nothing about this hardware. It just kind of fell into my lap when I installed it, and it's like, okay. So first things first, the GUI's too small. However, I wasn't sure whether the sound, like I'd never heard of it, so I'm like, well, how good can this be? Am I going to like it? And then when I put it on some guitars, I was totally blown away. I really like the narrow band boosts. I think they sound incredible. And the broadband boosts and cuts sound great too. This is not really a character EQ as much. It's a good all-purpose tool. Anytime you have an EQ where the frequency range and is sweepable, I like that, right? You know, you get tired of using Pultex all the time because there's only so many different places you can go. But I like this, and I put it on some guitars, was really pleasantly surprised at how it was able to change and shape the character without messing it up. So let's hear it on your mix.
Yeah, very cool. I have it's like a trailer cue here. Yeah, it's already sounding pretty good. Let me just play it.
Okay. Did you ever try using that to help you sleep?
Oh, this is my nightly ritual. That's my pre-bed meditation right there.
Everyone, children, put this on before bed and see what happens.
So not bad. I mean, I went for this because the Oram gear is pretty popular in film world, TV world, that sort of thing. He did a lot of business with film mixing studios and stuff.
Cool.
And particularly what I like about this equalizer is that it's clean. Like it's definitely to me more like in the I don't know Millennia world than say Pultec world.
Yeah, I agree. We were talking about that.
Yeah, like I'm not sure if I would add this to just give the whole thing a big sense of warmth and depth necessarily, but as a corrective tool, and it actually will reach very high and very deep. And this is what I'll turn it on now. Let me run it again. Without, with. And again, this is difficult to read, and maybe I'll go on a little Joe Pesci rant later about that. But I've set the low shelf, I believe this is it, down at 35. If I crank it up, you can hear how quickly it could actually get to be too much. If I just clip there. Which is why they give you these handy detail buttons. And at first I wasn't sure what detail was. I thought, oh, maybe it's like a dynamic process or something, but it isn't. All it does is it reduces your range from like a pretty big boost and cut range in terms of dBs down to 6 dBs. Okay. So if you're worried about going too far with it and you're in a mastering situation, then you could hit detail, and that knob now has a lot more swing on it, and you got less danger of getting...
Okay, yeah.
High end. Let me crank that up a bit. Move that down in frequency maybe. Whoa. Like it can get a lot pretty fast if you're not on detail. Let's go back to where I had it, which was 20, but let me put the detail on this time, but crank it up a bit. And that way we'll be getting 6 dBs at 20 kilohertz. Bit more cinematic. Let me turn it off. Back on. Just to give you that sense of hi-fi air on both the top and the low. I mean, that might even be a bit much. Sometimes it gets hard to tell in the headphones, but well, you can get the idea about how it will just cleanly give you a, some extra space. You talking to me? You talking to me? I'm the only one here. Let's do, just go for a rock track. I had this set up. Pull up the plug-in. I actually did this 2 ways, too. So to me, I'm hearing it sounds like an okay mix. I don't think there's any real problem with the very bottom end, the subs. That kick is down there and it's punching. What I feel like I'm missing maybe is around the 100 hertz region. And maybe the snare could be cracking more. And maybe it could use a little bit more air on the very top end of the spectrum. So what I set up, the first EQ here is set up in MS mode, actually. Let me turn it on so you can hear what it did. So it's on now. Turning it off. On. Generally in MS I don't like to go too far because you can detach your stereo image pretty quickly. For everything that's straight down the middle, I think I used the low sweep, and I put it around 100 hertz. Right, that frequency there. Here it is flat. So I think I just gave it a hair in the middle. And that was the only treatment for the middle. On the sides, I gave it... Here's the shelf at 10K. Let's see if this is it. Yeah, this is it. So again, the detail button's not on, so you can hear it. It can get to be a lot pretty quickly when you're mastering. Turn that detail on, and then a little safer, right? So it sounds all right to me on and off. Just to be sure, I went and I duplicated the same moves, but this time it's just in basic stereo mode, so left and right getting the same treatment. Just put a little bit more there. Oh, there's the shelf. So there's this basic stereo mode. Off. Now the MS mode. After hearing the two, I might actually go for just the plain straight up stereo on that, but they're pretty close. But you could basically get a sense for the, at least how the high and the low end work on this unit. To me, it's very detailed, very hi-fi. It's called high def, right? The high def 55. And yeah, I love it.
It's very nice.
Yeah.
All right. Now, you mentioned a couple things there. One of them was that it brings out some life, adds some liveliness back to the track. I noticed it really, it helps pop things into their rightful place in the stereo image, like where things were just kind of there, but just meh, you know, by adding a little bit of this EQ, it really helped them seat their spot in the stereo spectrum, I felt. And as you'll see when I do my bit, the mid-range bands actually can help totally change the voice or correct the voice of like something like a guitar. So is that, you want me to load up?
Yeah, why don't you load up? I do have a sort of a mid-range example.
Oh, do it.
Let's do it. Another mastering thing. I've got one, and I still believe on this one, this next example, I'm using the high shelf, but I've got it down at 5 kilohertz, so we could hear a little bit more, hopefully, of the mid-range character. Here was a track that I think needed. It seemed to have a pretty good lows and highs. Just seemed to be a bit lacking in the upper mids. So I put the shelf on at 5 kilohertz. That's on now. Listen to the reverb and the kind of the space behind the song. Turn it off now. Back on. Anyway, yeah, so that had a bit of 5 kilohertz shelf. Maybe it had a little bit of a sub bump down at 35s too. But you can hear it doesn't sound very phasey, which is great. It's got really good phase response.
Yep, I agree.
And which makes it suitable for mastering or for full complex program material. But really you had it on some tracks too, right?
I did. I put on tracks instead of a mix. So we'll switch over.
Yeah, let's do that.
The response, please, Damien.
So in my instance, I just grabbed, so everything's off right now. It doesn't look it. Everything's off. This was just, I needed a mix. I didn't have one. So I grabbed some Apple Drummer and I threw down left, right guitar tracks. So just to make a brief progression, nothing serious, but I just wanted to be able to demo it. So here's what it sounds like with nothing on it. The second guitar will come in on the right side, unless you have your headphones backwards. right, so just noodling around with those two guitars, and I was using a plug-in by a manufacturer. They created an amp called Surrey, so I know we'll be covering that in another episode, but I put that on here and some TC Electronics 2290 delay. But what I want you to listen to here is, let's start with the drums. With the drums, and I'm going to have to lean in to look at this one. I know I put some top shelf on this. I know I've fussed with the bottom by giving it a bit of a boost and then putting the low shelf on. So you have the two bands are probably interfering with each other a bit. So there is a boost in the low end, but then the shelf is going to maybe sharpen that corner a bit.
Nice.
And as you can see, for the drums, whatever I chose here, I decided to give the middle like a bit of a voice. So somewhere around 600 or 700, maybe. I gave it a touch of a boost, and I pushed the narrow button in so that you can hear what the narrow sounds like. And I left in the preamp and their control link, because the drums, I had the control link on so that both left and right move at the same time. So let's listen to the drums with and without EQ. So starting without. Let's turn it on. Now you'll notice something. What you'll notice about it is that when it kicks in, I didn't want to go, sometimes with overheads, you don't want to be all the way starting your shelf in 10K, because all it does is make cymbals and things really toothy. They're just too crisp in the way top. So I think I pulled the shelf down here. I'm going to have to look at it. One sec. Yeah, I decided to try the 6K instead of the 20K, because to me, for a shelf, 20 is way too high. And I didn't want to go down all the way into the mid-range, so I put the 6 on and just have a listen again, off and on, to what it does to the sound of like cymbals. Listen for the hi-hats and the cymbals, okay? So here it is with off. Very flat, subdued top end. Kick it in. See how everything just brightened up all of a sudden?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you heard that, but the top end, let's do it with no other instruments. And the EQ off. Kick it in. So I did two things simultaneously. I boosted it 6 for the shelf, but I also gave a narrow band boost around, as I mentioned, somewhere in the 5 to 700 hertz. And that allowed the drums to have a little bit of a shape that they didn't have before. Tonally, there's like a lower mid-range kind of honk. Have a listen. Without. Sorry, this is without. Listen to the snare, the resonance of the snare. Here it's very snary, very metallic. Now listen again. You hear the body that brought up?
Oh, quite a bit of punch. And
tons of punch. And really cemented it in the stereo image too. I felt like all of a sudden the hi-hats are there right where I positioned them. Do you know what I mean? Like before they were just kind of in the mix. You could hear them, the hi-hats, it totally working, got it. But with that that added presence boost, is probably the 6K doing it. It just seemed to all of a sudden have its rightful seat in the stereo image. I was really impressed with that.
That's a good way to... sorry.
Go for it.
Well, that's a good way to put it, because to me it did sound like you moved the microphone, or maybe you used a different microphone. It doesn't sound EQ'd.
I was going to suggest that before, when I was thinking about this episode, as we were sitting down to start recording, I was thinking, it almost feels like on the guitars, like I chose a different mic. It's not like you all of a sudden feel like I boosted a frequency. It's like there is a different character to it, almost like the pickup has changed. So let's try it on a guitar. This guitar with no EQ. It's not too bassy. It's not too dark. There's a swirliness to it and a little bit of a bottom. It's almost sticky in the bottom there, just because I think that the two TC220, 2290s are doing some modulation. So they're adding some thickness to it that might be perceived as bass, but let's listen without and with. Here's with. Off. Very subdued, right? And on. So here again, I got to zoom in and take a look. What did I do? I added some 60. Looks like I boosted that a little bit, but have the detail knob on. So that's probably just a couple of dB. And most importantly, just shy of, like, I wouldn't call that exactly 3K. Yeah, maybe it is 3K. I gave it a hefty boost in 3K using the narrow button and the detail button. I think you hurt my head real bad. All right, so yeah, I mean, I did a little more trimming on the right-hand guitar as well, but I think you can see that it has the potential to really, really shape an instrument, especially musically. Like it really enhances the tonality. I found that when I kick the EQ in on that guitar, I heard the modulation better. So there's some chorusing happening, but it's gentle. It's swirly, but it's in the background. And I found this EQ really helped boost it to the fore. And then it really helped shape the instruments in a way that you could now place them in a mix and they all sound really defined, but I haven't over added mid-range or treble to make it do that. There's just something about these curves or the way the EQ acts on it that it really helps it find its presence and find its place in the stereo pan field. So I liked it. I don't know if I would use this every day, but I thought it was a really good, clean, precise, job done kind of EQ.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Classy sound. Very classy.
Totally.
And, I mean, transparent gets used a lot. I mean, but cohesive is almost
You mentioned that its sweet spot was like in the film and the film and TV type of industry, and I can see why, because it really does make sure that everything has a place. So it kind of lifts and separates a bit, but at the same time, it doesn't impose any character or any distortion that you'd want. And that would be great for a dialogue track, for sound effects, for that kind of thing. And it did like a great job on the bass too.
Oh yeah, the low end is significant on this. It will go deep. It's different.
Totally.
It's not like a Pultec where you put it in and all of a sudden everything's all like creamy or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not like that.
Exactly.
But if you want some precise subs, it's got them.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, that's it for this one. Just
good,
make the GUI bigger. It's got to be bigger.
Or resizable, or do something with the controls. It's 2020 now, right? So
yeah.
Like you see here, actually, because I can't get too close to the screen the way my camera works, I've actually got the GUI on a tablet here so that I could see what I'm doing.
Separate machine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is one of the first videos where I had to like kind of get out of frame and lean right into my own screen so I could see it. So it's a little small to be useful on, because remember, I mean, most music producers are shuttling to their day job with a 13 or 14, 15 inch laptop in their backpack and doing a lot of production on the road, right? That's the future of music. And so I think that we can't trust that everyone's going to have a giant screen in front of them. So these things need to be laid out differently, or you need to be able to size it to taste, one or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so hopefully that's a project to get on. I know that there are quite a few plugin companies that now have implemented resizable GUIs, either ones that you can drag and make bigger, or you go somewhere in the settings and you can choose 100% or 50 or 200 or whatever. And
exactly.
I don't know how easy or hard that is to do. I imagine if it was really easy, everyone would have done it by now. But I think that's something that's going to become more and more important. And because I've got a nice big 4K monitor, and when I bought it, I thought, this is going to be great. I'll finally be able to see all the plugins. But that's not what happens. When you drag them over, they actually get smaller.
Smaller.
Yeah. So
that's funny.
Yeah. If you were running at 4K.
Yeah, so something needs to be done there.
Yeah.
But otherwise, great plug. I like it. It's a great addition to another one to have in the toolbox, man.
Sounds amazing. So highly recommended.
Yeah. Great job, Acoustica.
Yeah, man.
All right.
All right. Well, we've got, it's been a hell of a year, hell of a month. We're going to have some other episodes coming up. We also took a look at Surrey by Sounddrops, which might be the best in-the-box amp I've ever heard. And then later on, and hopefully before the end of the year, we're going to have our year-end episode where we sort of round up 2020 and what some of the highlights, at least for us, were.
That's right.
And then after that, it's the zombie apocalypse, right? So
shortly thereafter, stay tuned, folks.
Yeah.
Because after that, it all goes downhill. Comes apart quickly. All right, dude. We'll see you next time, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, leaving your comments as always. Great to hear from you, and we will see you soon on the Mixorcist.